Welcome. Thank you for joining us at today's program featuring artist, curator, and art therapist Nicole Rademacher. Presented as part of the Wignall Museum's Home Edition, a series of curated artist talks, workshops, and discussions featuring artists and cultural workers. My name is Rebecca Treywick. I'm the director and curator of the Wignall Museum. The Wignall Museum is a teaching museum and interdisciplinary art space that introduces Chaffey College students, faculty, staff, and community members to innovative contemporary art objects and ideas. By fostering critical thinking, visual literacy, discourse, and empathy, the museum seeks to enhance the intellectual and cultural life of our community. We want to take a moment to recognize that we are situated on the Rancho Cucamonga campus of Chaffey College, which resides on the traditional and unceded lands of the Tongva people. We offer our recognition and respect to the elders, both past, present, and future.
And hello, my name is Roman Stallenwerk. I'm assistant curator at the Wignall Museum. We are recording all sessions of Home Edition. When possible, recordings are made available on our website. Announcements post to our email subscribers and social media when new videos are available. All recordings on our site include captions and audio descriptions as options. Visit us at www.chaffey.edu/Wignall to access our full schedule of programs and available recordings. You can follow us on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Wignall Museum. Visit our website About Us page if you would like to sign up to receive email announcements. After today's session, we ask that you complete a brief survey at tinyurl.com/Wignall Spring 21 Visitors Survey. In a moment, Nicole will be presenting for about a half an hour. The remaining time will be available for questions and discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Roman. So today we're pleased to introduce Nicole Rademacher. Nicole is a Los Angeles-based artist, an art therapist, and a marriage and family therapist. The influence of her adoption and reunion with her biological family feature prominently in her studio practice, where she explores concepts of intimacy, identity, and belonging through visual work, as well as in community engagement works. Rademacher holds an MFA from Alfred University and a BFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. She recently completed her MA at LMU in the Marital and Family Therapy program with specialization in clinical art therapy. Rademacher is the founder and director of the intimate project space Acogedor, which translates to cozy in English. She has collaborated and shown work widely, both nationally and internationally, and she's the recipient of a number of artist residencies and grants. I had the pleasure of participating in a virtual workshop for adult adoptees in the last year with Nicole that she developed and facilitated, and it was really amazing. So I'm delighted to welcome Nicole to the Wignall Museum today to share with us. Please join me in giving Nicole a warm virtual welcome. Nicole, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you to Chaffey College and to Roman and to everyone involved in the organization of this event. I'm really excited to be here and share some old work and some new work and talk a little bit about my journey. I'm an artist. I'm a reunited adoptee, as Rebecca also talked about, and an art therapist. Reunited adoptee means that I have reunited with my biological family. And in my case, my biological family is intact, meaning that both of my biological parents were married. And so I also have two full younger brothers. My adoption and reunion with my biological family feature prominently in my studio practice, where I explore concepts of intimacy, identity, and belonging, as Rebecca had mentioned, and I've collaborated and shown work nationally and internationally on all 6 continents. So I have the MFA and BFA, and I'm an associate marriage and family therapist, which means I've graduated and I'm on my way to licensure, and I'm also an art therapist. I'm going to share some selected video projects with you. So as a multi-ethnic adoptee, so my biological father is Mexican and my biological mother is Caucasian from Milwaukee, and my dad's from Monterrey, Mexico. I've spent my life carefully observing family. I consider materials such as gesture, space, and and object cultural artifacts of communication. In my practice, I use the relationship video has to time in our experience of reality through imagery. I personally gather footage, often finding subjects during the process. I then select visual components to activate, meticulously manipulating the imagery through stretching, compressing, juxtaposing, cutting, and repeating. I speculate on the meaning of ordinary movements, proximity of family members, and relationships with space and objects as a method of describing alienation, belonging, intimacy, and protection. So You Are a Perpetual Tourist was finished in 2008. And so you'll notice kind of the antiquated size of the video. It's a series of 63 short and micro experimental documentaries exploring ideas of longing and distance between children and adult family members in a public space as expressed through gesture. And I cite this as kind of the first body of work where I'm really looking at that visual space between family members and really thinking about how we interact with people who are related to us or who we're intimately familiar with. The footage was gathered over 4 years in Tucson, Chicago, New York, Panama Canal, Panama City Airport, Valparaiso in Chile, Viña del Mar in Chile, Mendoza in Argentina, and Buenos Aires in Miami. So this is a documentation of the installation. So it's single channel. And here are some video stills. And then I'm going to play this video, which was actually featured in many different film festivals and video art festivals. The next piece I want to share is called Potential Spaces. It's a projected video installation investigating space between members of bicultural couples. This footage was shot between 2010 2013. They're artifacts. I'm looking at the space as artifacts of amalgamated personal culture. Referencing the principle of potential energy and physics, potential spaces consider space as a field of action while simultaneously making action possible. So here's a video still, and then I'm going to play some of this excerpt. And the last video piece that I want to share with you is called Gate Pass. So it explores the correlations between, or explored, I guess I should have done past tense with that, correlations between private and public gestures of familial protection as interpreted through the fixture of home gates. So I examined ideas of privacy and protection through interviews and observations of the people who live behind or passed through the gates in the central province of Kenya while on a 3-month residency there. My research revealed a shared need for security and the lengths we go to achieve a sense of safety and stability. Gate Pass documents these impeding physical boundaries through photography and video. I'm just going to show the video portion, exploring the daily occurrences both inside and outside the gates, while revealing connections of intimacy and formality, alienation and belonging, security and vulnerability. So this was installed at LAX for about 6 months in 2017. And one reason why I sought to have it installed there was to really create a dialogue with air travelers about security measures as a collective component of the air travel experience and encouraging reflection on issues of trust and protection. I have a feeling that if I had done this piece now after we're dealing with a lot of safety and protection through the pandemic, that it would look quite different. Here's the installation shot, and I'll play a small excerpt. And now I want to share 2 different adoptee focused projects where it's less about me kind of observing and understanding how family members relate to one another, and more about really delving directly into the experience as an adoptee. The first is called Origin Stories. It's a community-based project exploring concepts of identity, isolation, assimilation, difference, and family. The project documents a multi-year process conducted with marginalized communities in Southern California and Iowa. Originally designed to empower adopted and fostered people to record their unique histories, this 2-hour workshop invited participants to work in groups to create a story using visual prompts. The stories are shared with the entire cohort of participants. Then individually, each participant created at least one card by either drawing, tracing, a collage, or other two-dimensional way that visually illustrates something from the collective story. So a character, a plot, a resolution, problem along the way. So they worked in groups and then worked individually. So the first, as mentioned, the first workshops were presented only to adoptees and fostered people. I later expanded it to artists, particularly female identifying artists and artists who feel marginalized, and then also to the general public. Additionally, other workshops in Los Angeles, I invited co-facilitators who were not adoptees, but told their own origin stories as they related to social belonging that may intersect with their social positions in the society. So in immigrant identity, queer, ethnic minority, etc. The cards created in the workshop reflected not only remembered and imagined past, but also stories that have been passed down in their birth, adopted, or chosen families, stories that have been whispered from one woman to another and imagined futures. Each card became part of another deck that was imprinted and used in future workshops. So here is documentation of the installation of some of the cards. So these are the original cards. And then here are some examples of the different cards. Some of these were made by fostered or adoptees, and some of them by general public or artists. But they use lots of different ways of expression. And then here's some documentation from the invited co-facilitators telling their own stories. This is Chelo Montoya. So she is an artist and also organizer and artivists in the Los Angeles area. Here are some of the groups of people interpreting the stories. They're kind of like, they look kind of like tarot cards or inspirational cards. And here again, they've laid out the cards and are, creating the story together. Here they're making their cards. And then here is a picture of me with Bitter Party, which was the last co-facilitator when I did this at 18th Street, and they're a ghost pop band. So being adopted is a project, as it says, is ongoing. I started it in 2019. It asks the question, if as an adult adoptee, what 3 words would you choose to describe your experience, your adoption experience? And so I created this form where people will go to. Everything is confidential. People put in a name if they want, or anonymous, or however they want to have it, the data kind of marked. And then here, and then I would create these index cards with their names. So like this is Allison, Louise. We also have anonymous up here, Anonyme from France. I asked what country they lived in just to get a little bit more demographics. So far, I've had 239 people respond, representing 16 countries and 352 distinct words used. So this was launched in November of 2019, and I actually just got a new response like a week or something ago. So they're trickling in now, but in the beginning, there was a big push for it. And then you can see the actual digital installation here. So here's the index card that's then matched with with the words that she chose. And you can see all of them. Alone and lonely were big words that were used. I think like those were the biggest words that were used, if I'm not mistaken, or the most represented, I guess would be a more appropriate term. And then I want to finish with acogedor. So as Rebecca mentioned, it means cozy in Spanish, and it's an intimate project space. It was originally in my front lawn, but now we've moved things online. So we've done belonging panels, and then this has started since COVID. I did a home exhibition, and then I did these invisibility sessions. So I'm still making artwork, but a lot of my work has moved. A lot of my work as an artist has moved to community engagement in different ways. So I launched acogedor as an alternative project space because I wanted to explore deeper and outside of myself and my own ideas, notions of belonging, as I had been examining them in my art practice visually. As an adopted person, I have spent a lot of time, at least a small part of every day that I can remember, thinking about and agonizing over my relationship to belonging. Do I belong? Do I feel it? What does that feel like? Is it real? In my many conversations with other adoptees, I hear these questions reflected back to me. I know in my heart that non-adopted persons also feel this. Through these panels on belonging, I wanted to broaden my concept of belonging as an adoptee experience, as the adoptee experience. I invited others whom I knew could speak to the entangled emotions and complex experiences of belonging and not belonging. So for the first belonging panel, I invited, we'll just start with here. She's Zoomed in, or I guess she's Skyped in. This was before Zoom was a big thing. Angela Wasiskuk. She's a Korean American transracial adoptee in Iowa, also an artist. And then we have Dr. Umi Su, who is an ethnomusicologist and identifies as non-binary. And then we have Debbie Allen, who is a Black midwife. So we all discussed different ideas about belonging and when we don't belong in these different spaces, and particularly spaces that we should feel like we belong. Next, we did belonging in tea. So using tea as this idea in different cultures where you come together and you belong and you create community. Sue was there again, and they guided us through a soundscape experience. And then Trey, they also had us do a writing reflection. So then after that, for acogedor, I took a break and I was about to do more programming, but then the pandemic hit. And it took me a couple months to realize, wait, why am I not doing programming? I can just do it online. I have the website and I have a facility with digital. So I was interested in exploring the shifting nature of home during the pandemic. And acogedor invited submissions from artists worldwide across mediums. So artists who identify as BIPOC or from historically marginalized backgrounds were especially encouraged to apply. All of the work in the exhibition was created during the quarantine. So from since March 16th, 2020, and I believe I closed the open call the first week of August, 2020. So each artist examined their relationship to their abode, as well as the social isolation that ensued with being confined to their residences. The lived experience of 42 artists spanning 5 countries were chosen to show and explore the diverse experiences that each of us was experiencing in this certainly bizarre new world. And so here, this was the first homepage I made for it. well, I'll show you in a second, that I found 4 different themes that we worked for, especially because there were so many different pieces. And so this was an animation with the corona. So that was our first homepage for it. So I had little gestures, which is this one. So these pieces looked at gesture in different ways about their relationship to their home. And then in this one, we looked at time, so different ways of experiencing or thinking about time. And then this is with connections. So how are we making connections in your home? How are you making connections during the pandemic? And then the last one was the in-between. So these different spaces. In addition to the exhibition, I also programmed 5 different artist talks. So this was, and I did them based on the themes. So the first one is actually for little gestures, and then there's one for time, one for connections, and one for the in-between. So this was for little gestures. We had 4. And then there were also 2 ancillary events. So these are, they were durational performances. And so this, we had people sewing together, and we kind of DJ'd the sound of the different sewing machines for about 15 minutes. And then this one, people stayed as still as they could in their own spaces. And again, we video DJ'd it as far as like highlighting different people and then zooming back out and showing everybody. And then as I had pretty good success with the home exhibition, I wanted to continue on the momentum. And so I started programming these invisibility conversations, exploring the idea of being invisible in society or in family in the world. And it was really interesting for me to kind of curate those programming, or the programming. So I started doing it once a month, and I did it right after the home exhibition. So the first one was actually family and grief. And then we did mental health, stigma, and immigration. And then lastly, in December, we did body and body image. And I had programming actually scheduled all the way through May, I believe. But I had to take a hiatus. So it's really interesting. It's funny because here I'm looking at mental health and stigma when actually I wasn't paying attention to my own mental health. And because I have a diagnosis of bipolar 2, and I ended up having a mixed episode that stayed for a long time, probably because of the pandemic. And I knew that I couldn't really serve the community or be with people fully if I wasn't able to be by myself and be present and well. So I took a hiatus. And it looks like we're coming back in July for another invisibilities discussion. And this discussion will actually be with adoptees. So more to come on that. And then here is my information. If you, so my personal social media is Nick R. Rad, or Nick RRAD. And then Acogedor is ACOGEDOR.space. And then I also have one, which I'm not doing very much right now, but I need to get back into, is MissNicole.ArtTherapy. Any questions?
Thanks, Nicole. Really appreciate you sharing about your practice with us. I'd like to kick it off and just ask, I mean, obviously you've, as an adult adoptee, you know, adoption is a sort of interwoven consideration throughout your practice, something that you continually are sort of returning to, or it's a subtext in some cases. Have you ever considered creating work about your personal experience? And, you know, I think it's kind of a unique, interesting experience. And if yes, and you may not have, but if yes, what are some of the obstacles that make you take pause about doing that kind of, you know, very inward focused work?
It's hard. I did do one, and I actually have it right here. And now I can't remember what these things are called, but I worked with a friend of mine. So here's a drawing of my biological family about the same year that I was this age. And so if you flip it, then I kind of appear to be with them. So I didn't end up doing any more of these because it was hard to kind of match things up, and it's mentally or emotionally, I guess more than mentally, really difficult. I'm trying to find my way back to it. I feel like that's just a sketch for something. Like I thought it was a piece, but in the end, I feel like, especially now even showing it to you guys, I feel like it's just a sketch for something. I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, and then there's this thing as an adoptee of not wanting to, especially because the family I grew up with is very supportive, and I don't, it's not, it's a good story, and the same with my biological family, like they're intact, and it's taken 16 years, but we're, has it been 16? Yeah, it's been 16 or something like that. But we have a relationship, and so I don't want to offend anybody. I don't, I'm a people pleaser because I'm an adoptee. Yeah.
And it makes me think of if you're a author and writing memoir can be really sticky, right? Because you're not only writing about yourself, you're writing about those closest to you too. So
Yeah, and like you want to make sure that you're treating them with respect, but at the same time, how are you then honest about your own experience?
Mm-hmm.
Is someone going to get offended that I was really hurt that they did this? I know there's a lot of adoptees don't even search until their adoptive parents have passed.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. I also wanted to circle back to something. I loved the concept of imagined futures that you mentioned in the origin stories, and that being sort of a focal point of that project. And I want to bring that back to our, folks who might watch this in the future, students who are attending Chafee, right? They're all imagining their own futures, right? They're all trying to, visualize what that might look like. Any advice for artists and creatives who are trying to plan and imagine their own futures? I know that's a big question, but
yeah, that's a huge question. I'm like, God, I don't know. Be honest with yourself. I think that sometimes I'm not honest with myself, and then it catches me later. So I mean, I do need to follow my own advice. And it sounds so great, do what you love, but at the same time, sometimes you need to do something else too, to make it harder, just to or push yourself, I guess is more like what I'm saying. It isn't always about doing just, oh, I love this and this is amazing and this really feeds me, but challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. What does that mean? Are you only doing what you love because it's comfortable? And I guess that goes back to my whole, like, am I making work about my own personal experience as an adoptee? Am I not making work about my personal experience as an adoptee because it's comfortable?
And it seems like you've been really busy in your professional life in studio during the pandemic. Where have you found your inspiration during this time?
Inspiration to keep going, to like not be.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on the right path. I feel like I'm doing something, and with everything that happened with the home exhibition and really getting a good reception from that, that really showed me that that I need to keep doing this. That it's important work. It's not just something that I'm doing. That it's that it's working within this social context. So I think that's been inspiring to me, like working with all these different people and knowing that we're doing this collaborative work together, that is going somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, I think working with others. It's funny you say that I've been busy and I feel like I haven't, but then when I reflect back on actually what the presentation was, I'm like, yeah, I guess I have been busy.
Nick, can I ask a little bit about that, about your hiatus and about, I think there's been a larger discussion about mental health during the pandemic, right? Because so many people have found themselves suffering, either in silence or, along with their loved ones. And so I know you mentioned an episode, and so perhaps that's how you sort of were like jolted into, the reality of your situation. But I just wonder if you can talk about like how, because so many of us are contending with mental health, either personally or within our relationships. Can you talk about sort of like how to, I don't know, like how to keep yourself safe and healthy, or how to, help your loved ones in these situations?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this a lot out there, and I think it's really important, is really asking people how they're doing and waiting for them to give you an answer. And if they say, I'm okay, I'm fine, ask, what does that mean? And as a therapist, that's what it's like, how's your week been? Oh, it's been okay. Like, okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, where's okay and what does that mean? Because we're used to, I think before the pandemic, we're used to, oh, I'm fine. And we just kind of let it go. But now we are, like you say, in this global collective of, no, actually, we're not fine. And we need to know how everybody's doing. So I think what you're getting at is like the stigma is low, like there isn't as much stigma as there used to be around mental health. And that's really amazing and important. Yeah, I mean, and check in with yourself, right? How am I doing? How, scales are really great. Therapists love scales, scaling questions, and make your own, use your calendar and make your own log of that and see what's going on. Yeah, mine was, I was jolted into it and realized what was going on. And I still kind of resisted it while it was happening. I was like, because so bipolar is like the dual, right? It's like for bipolar 2, you're hypomanic. So you're not like saying you can, jump and fly off of buildings or things like that, but you're super motivated, you're laser focused, you're super productive, and you feel great. And then the lows are actually lower than with bipolar 1, the depression. So bipolar 2 depression is actually quite lower. And you can't, everything, brushing your teeth is hard. So for me, when I was in the beginning of this, what ended up being a mixed episode, I was with my hypomania. I was like, well, I have to stay up until midnight because I need to finish this project because I was in school and like doing this and doing that. And I'm like, but after it, once I finish it, I'll be fine. And then I'll be, but it didn't, it pushed it and it pushed it. And my psychiatrist tried, but I was so resistant to that I made it worse on myself. So, also as therapists, we always look to the support system. So when you've got somebody coming in and they're suffering from different, whether it's anxiety or depression or anything else, it's what is their support system? Do they have people they can count on? And hopefully you do. And make sure that, especially during this time, that you're counting on them.
Great, thanks for that. So Evelyn has a question. She asked that I read it for her. What is one of your favorite projects or pieces you've ever done? And what does your creative process look like? How do you bring your ideas to life?
I think my favorite is the first one I showed you, You Are a Perpetual Tourist. And I think it's probably why I show it too, because it's one of my favorites. It was so fun. And it really evolves on its own. So like when I first started shooting in 2004, I didn't know what I was shooting for. And eventually it kind of morphed itself into this. And my process is pretty intuitive. Sometimes it takes me a while to get started, but when I just kind of I do writing, I do free writes to get things out. I've been doing a lot of that lately. I haven't been making very much, like making. So yeah. Oh, good. That answered your questions. Thank you for that thumbs up.
So I wanted to ask about being adopted. One, is it ongoing? Can people continue to participate in the future? And then two, I'm just curious how you connect with, sometimes you're really focusing on very specific audiences or participant groups. Like how are you finding those folks?
Yes, it's still ongoing. I haven't done the big push for it that I did when I first started. I believe 2019 is what I said. I didn't look at the data until early 2020. That's why I got a little confused. But so being adopted is still ongoing. I can find the link and put it up. You can also go to it on my website. I have done a lot of work in communications, in particular in digital communications. And so I've done social media pushes, also cultivating relationships digitally to then do specific email asks for people who have audiences to push it out. It's that kind of social media digital savvy that I learned along the way as an artist and working in communications. And also to be clear of when you want a specific audience, to be clear of specifically who you want.
Do you have any additional ongoing projects or future projects, anything you're excited about, or things we hope changing? I don't,
I know, right?
So are you not in a phase mentally where you want to kind of plan, but like, is there anything you're working on now or hoping to be working on that you're comfortable sharing?
I'm having a hard time in the studio right now, so I want to be honest about that. But there is a project that's been on the back burner that I'm trying to reopen, which is a short film. And I'm working with my husband's a filmmaker, an emerging filmmaker. So I'm working with him on it. I'm trying to write this script about a girl who gets pregnant and ends up relinquishing her child. So I'm looking at it not from the adoptee perspective, but from the birth mother perspective. And looking at the kind of the crossover of those experiences, because my experience as an adoptee and my mother's experience as a birth mother, like our experiences are not in the normal narrative of the adoption story. It's all about the adoptive parents and being adopted. And so our stories aren't told that very often. So I want to do that and then see, maybe that leads to a feature, but let's just do the short first.
So one final question before we close out. I just wanted to ask, are there any artists or an artist whose work that is really inspiring you, that whose work you'd like to amplify and share with our audience?
Gala Porce Kim, her work, she's getting a lot of recognition right now, but her work is so poetic. And I think Carmen Argote, her work is also, it's very honest. Carmen's work is very honest and Gala's work is really poetic. And they're both LA-based artists.
Huge thanks to you, Nicole. Thanks so much for your time and generosity today. Fun to spend time with you and learn more about your practice and your professional life as well. So Roman just put a quick link in the chat about the survey. We'd appreciate it if you'd take 2 minutes to complete that. So thanks again, Nicole. We appreciate you. And thanks to everyone who attended today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. And thank you everyone for coming. Bye.
Thanks.